It's Dr. George, and I'm making sure that I get on my page so I can see those comments. I'm also live on Twitter tonight and YouTube and LinkedIn. So this is all new for me to be. I added two more platforms, so trying to open the audience up to more people. So, um, hello, Miss Dillard. How are you? And Annalise said, it's Lillian, and yesterday was my birthday. Happy belated birthday. You didn't make band, but it's okay. There'll be other things that you can try out for, sweetie. Hi, Genesis. How are you? I did. I miss you too, Annalie. I do. And it's okay. You know, we don't make everything in life. And sometimes we got to pick ourselves right back up and try something else. So I know they'll have probably student council. There'll probably be cheer, dance. Just don't give up, Lillian. Don't give up. Hi, Genesis. How are you? And there is how's school going? And hello, Ava, Ari, and Pop Pop. Hello, pleasure to see you. And my brother, my little big brother, or my big little brother, I should say, or just my big brother, Mr. Dr. Rice, a principal. We worked in the district together. So hello, and thanks for everything you do for the kids. And keep leading with heart, Dr. Rice. The world sees it. We see it. And thank you for tuning in. So tell your friends, if your parents have a LinkedIn account, they can see it live there. Hi, Miss Jackson. And Twitter, my Twitter friends, you can also comment and I'll be able to talk to you all. So this is great. So you all know that I'm finishing up my fairy tales book. So we've learned a lot about fairy tales. And remember, we talked about different genres of books, and you can read a fairy tale by another author and it'd be totally different. So we'll see the different variation. Remember, I don't read these until the night of, so we'll see if we see any differences with this story. And remember, we are reading tonight or listening to Sleeping Beauty. These are not AR books, but Sleeping Beauty. Now, for once, look at Sleeping Beauty and this book. Let me turn off the light. Oops. There we go. Look at Sleeping Beauty in this book. I've never seen her as a baby. So that's already a difference that we see. So let's see. A king and queen prayed for many years to be blessed with a child. When finally their daughter was born, the kingdom rejoiced at the news of their new princess. The king arranged for an elaborate christening to be held at the palace, and the most important people from near and far were invited. He asked the 7 best-known fairies to bestow gifts upon the new princess. But one very powerful fairy wasn't invited. The king and the queen hadn't heard from her in years, and they assumed that she was lost. When this disgruntled, forgotten fairy showed up to the christening uninvited, the king quickly set an extra place for her at the table. Unlike the other fairies, she had to eat from ordinary plates because there were only 7 gold plates and those were already taken. The fairy grew angrier and angrier. Hello, Mike. Then it was time for the fairies to announce their gifts to the princess. The sweet princess lay in her crib at the foot of her parents' thrones. One by one, they lined up, and with a wave of their wands, they gave the princess beauty, grace, a beautiful singing voice, the ability to play any musical instrument, intelligence, and kindness. The evil fairy then cut in line behind the 6th fairy to present her gift. With a flick of her wrist and a puff of smoke, she cast a spell. You, dear princess, who are beautiful and gifted, will have an unhappy fate. You will stick your finger upon the spindle of a spinning wheel and die. Oh, well, that escalated quickly. Everyone gasped, and the fairy flew off before anyone could catch her. What are we going to do? The king and queen asked. Excuse me. It was the 7th fairy, the youngest of the group, who had not yet given her gift to the princess. Maybe I can help. I cannot undo the fairy spell, but I can do this. With a flick of her wrist, she said, "Dear princess, spindles might be your enemy, but they will not be your death. When you prick your finger, you will fall into a long sleep of 100 years. Then your true love will arrive to break the spell." Immediately, the king ordered every spinning wheel in the kingdom destroyed, and the princess grew up protected and unaware of her fate. Hi, Miss Kelly. Not long after the princess turned 15, she was wandering on her own when she met an old woman spinning thread. The princess had never seen such a contraption. This old woman was new to the kingdom and didn't know about the king's decree banning all spinning wheels. The princess was fascinated by the machine. She sat and watched the woman spin. Soon, she became transfixed as if she was under a spell. "Would you like to try?" the woman asked. The princess approached the spinning wheel and pricked her finger on the spindle. She collapsed, and the old woman called for help. Representatives from the palace arrived and carried the princess home. Her mother and father were devastated, but grateful that she was breathing. They rested her in the highest tower of the castle. After a few days, the king and queen started to get worried about what would happen in 100 years. When their daughter woke up, she would be confused and surrounded by strangers. They called upon the 7 fairies and asked them to cast a spell over the entire castle. The fairies put everyone to sleep. No one would wake up until the princess's spell had been broken. Everyone in the castle, from the cooks to the servants to every royal member of the household, froze in place. Their sleeping bodies slumped to the floor where they will remain for 100 years. Over time, the brush and brambles surrounding the castle grew higher and thicker, so any passerby wouldn't recognize it. 100 years passed, and many rumors about the castle and its people spread to nearby kingdoms. One day, a prince from a neighboring land was out hunting. His dog had run off in search of the next kill. Far away from the hunting party, the prince came upon the thicket surrounding the castle. He looked up and saw the high tower above. When he returned to his group, he asked them whose castle it was. Everyone had different stories about diseases and curses and said that the castle was abandoned. But when he returned home and mentioned it to his father, the king told him the tale of the sleeping princess. So there it is. Now, this is definitely a version I hadn't heard. What about you guys? It was a story that had been told to him when he was a boy. The prince knew that was the true story, and he was determined to save this helpless princess. He rode with his best men to the base of the castle. The brambles untangled before his eyes, revealing a wide path directly to the front door of the castle. He quickly rode toward the castle, but when he looked behind him, he was all alone. The path had revealed itself only to him. The prince rode up to the gate, passing the bodies of townspeople and guards along the way. Were they all dead? He dismounted his horse and knelt before one of them. The man's cheeks were rosy, and he was still breathing. He was sleeping, just as in his father's story. The prince entered the castle and walked up to the highest tower, where he saw the princess asleep, lying in an extravagant bed. She was more beautiful than he could have ever imagined, and without hesitation, the prince knelt down next to her and kissed her. The princess opened her eyes and looked up at the man who'd saved her. Slowly, the spell lifted, and everyone in the castles woke up. The prince and the princess talked for hours. There were many questions to ask when 100 years had passed. That night, he proposed to her, and she accepted. The prince and the princess were soon married, and they ruled the kingdom and its people together wisely and well. Well, let me just tell you, it came to me like this. My takeaway from this story. So my takeaway is sometimes people will say things that will happen to us, and sometimes you can believe it. Sometimes you cannot believe it. But most importantly, when something happens to you, like when she had to be put to sleep, the king and queen thought it would be a good idea that everybody falls asleep, not just her. Sometimes here we go. You ready, Miss Jackson? Sometimes when people are miserable, they make other people miserable. everybody else. They wanted it convenient for one person, so they disrupted a whole kingdom so that one person could remain happy. Now, it was a gesture of love, but nobody got a voice in it. Nobody was able to say, I don't want to do this. They were made to do it. So be careful before you make a decision. For a lot of people, make sure that it's not you that want the change, but it's everyone. And I'll tell you what, the buy-in will be worth it. That's my takeaway. That's kind of deep for kids, but the kid version is, don't go sticking your hand on a needle anyway, because you'll bleed and it'll hurt. And luckily, you won't go to sleep for the rest of your life, and you won't die, like they said, but it will hurt. And when your parents, sometimes when kids at school are saying things and they're not so very kind, or sometimes they're mean, you have to know within yourself that you're good. The prince knew he was a good person, and he knew he wanted to help, and nothing stopped him from helping her. So that's my big takeaway. And hi, Chase, my sixth grader. Hello. Pleasure to have you, Chase. So now Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So I don't know how different this can be, but we shall see in just a little bit. A widowed king had a beautiful daughter named Snow White. When Snow White was still very young, the king remarried. Snow White's stepdaughter had a magic mirror she hung over her vanity. Every morning she asked her mirror, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? And the mirror would always respond, you, my queen, are the fairest in all the land. As Snow White grew up, she also grew more beautiful. She had skin the color of fresh snow and lips as red as the loveliest rose. One morning, when the queen asked the mirror as usual who was the fairest, the mirror said, it's true, my queen, that you are fair, but young Snow White is the fairest of them all. The queen seethed with jealousy. She could not stand to be outshone by her stepdaughter. The next day, she hired a huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. The huntsman did as she asked, but he could not bear to kill the poor innocent Snow White. Go, Snow White, run away, he said to her. He told Snow White about the queen's plan and begged her to run away and never to return to the palace. Snow White obeyed and disappeared into the forest. The huntsman killed a passing deer and took the meat to the queen to convince her that he had followed her orders. That night, the queen feasted on what she thought was Snow White, satisfied that she had rid herself of her beautiful stepdaughter. The next morning, the queen looked into her magic mirror and with a smug look on her face asked, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? The mirror replied, you are fair, my queen, but young Snow White is still the fairest of them all. The queen was enraged. She had been deceived by the huntsman and her stepdaughter. She knew that if she was to get rid of Snow White, she'd have to find her and kill her herself. So there's Snow White. Now, I've definitely never heard this version. My goodness. Meanwhile, when Snow White had left the huntsman, she'd wandered through the forest until she found a small cottage. Hello! She peeked inside and saw 7 small beds and no one home. I'll just rest my head before anyone comes home, she thought. Hours passed and Snow White lay in a deep sleep. As evening approached, she awoke to find 7 dwarfs looking at her. Hi, Barry. I haven't seen you in a long time. How's the weather in Canada? Hours passed. Oh, I read that part. Oh, dear, she said, I'm very sorry. She explained to them everything that had happened with the queen and the huntsman. The dwarfs felt sorry for beautiful Snow White and agreed to let her stay there if she kept house while they worked in the mines all day. Snow White eagerly agreed. Every day she cleaned the house and cooked for them, and the 7 dwarfs returned home to a clean house and a hot meal. One day, while the 7 dwarfs were at work, a raged peddler knocked on the cottage door. Excuse me, Mr. Peddler said, would you like to buy some silk lace? What beautiful lace, Snow White exclaimed, and she invited the old peddler inside. Snow White was such an innocent, trusting young woman that she didn't see the harm in inviting this poor old woman inside. But unbeknown to her, the peddler was in fact the queen in disguise. As soon as the queen was inside, she took the silk lace and tied her up. Snow White fell down as if she were dead. When the dwarfs returned home, they found their Snow White on the floor, stiff and not breathing. Quickly, they cried, unlace her. They untied the silk, and Snow White breathed again. You must not let strangers inside, Snow White, the dwarfs told her. Be careful and don't open the door to strangers. Back at the castle, the queen approached her magic mirror. She had an evil smirk on her face when she asked, Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? My queen, you are fair, but Snow White is still the fairest of them all. Once again, the queen had failed to destroy her stepdaughter. She devised another plan. Barry said, if you like hot and humid, the weather is awesome. Welcome to Texas. Sure, it's not as hot there as it is here. The next day, the queen again disguised herself as a peddler and knocked on the dwarf's cottage door. Go away. I'm not allowed to open the door to anyone, Snow White said. I am, but an old woman trying to earn some money, the queen said. I have beautiful combs to sell to beautiful girls. Snow White couldn't stand keeping an old woman waiting outside. She let the peddler in and allowed her to put the comb in Snow White's hair. As soon as the evil queen did, Snow White fell down dead, and the queen left laughing as she rode back to her castle. The dwarfs returned to find Snow White dead on the floor of the cottage. Snow White, they cried. Quickly, they pulled the comb from her hair, and Snow White came back to life. They warned her again about not letting strangers into their home. The evil queen is trying to kill you, they said. Snow White promised she would obey this time. Meanwhile, sure that she had already succeeded, the queen asked her mirror who the fairest was. The mirror once again said Snow White was the fairest. Furious, the queen spent all night developing a poison apple. One side was white and safe to eat. The other was red and would instantly kill whoever took a bite. The following day, the queen returned to Snow White's house disguised as an old peddler. I will not open the door, Snow White insisted. And here's Snow White and her stepmother. I am just an old peddler trying to sell some apples. No, I cannot let you in. Please go away, Snow White said. There is nothing to fear. I will take one bite from the apple and you will see that it is harmless and delicious. Curious, Snow White opened the door just a crack and watched the queen bite into the apple. The queen ate the white part and then handed the apple to Snow White, who took the shiny red apple in her hands and took a bite of the red side. Before she could finish swallowing, Snow White dropped to the floor dead. Finally, the queen cried, Snow White is truly dead. The dwarfs returned home to find Snow White on the floor, pale and stiff. They searched her hair for poison combs and her arms for poison silk, but found nothing. They couldn't do anything to help their dear Snow White. The dwarfs put her in a glass coffin and carried her to a hill not far away. They laid her coffin among wildflowers, and they said their goodbyes. The evil queen asked her mirror, Mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? You are, my queen. You are the fairest in all of the land, the mirror responded. Weeks passed. Then one day, a prince rode by on his way home to his kingdom. He saw a beautiful girl inside a coffin and fell in love with her skin as white as snow and lips as red as a rose. He asked the dwarfs if he might have this beautiful woman for his wife. The prince vowed to take care of her, and even though the dwarfs didn't want to part with her, they agreed to let him take her. The prince's men came with their horses, ready to transport the coffin back to the palace. As they carried the coffin down the hill, the apple bite came dislodged from Snow White's throat. She awoke and sat up to see her dwarfs surrounding her and the prince standing over her. When her eyes met his, she fell in love. Soon they married, and Snow White spent her days safe in her palace with many visits to her dwarf friends. So, geez, maybe I missed all this as a kid. So, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So, in this book, Snow White, there's a lot of jealousy. Another word for jealousy is envy. And so there was a lot of that in this book. And this story. So my takeaway from this book is if someone harms you, Melvin, and I've heard, and you probably heard someone say many, many times, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And it was shame on her because not once, not twice, but 3 times, the queen tricked her and tried to harm her only because of her face. Sometimes we look different or act differently from people, and they don't like you because of that. And boys and girls and adults, you know what? At an early age, you have to learn that you love you and you were made uniquely. The way you look, the way you act, the way you sound, the way you behave is uniquely catered to you. And not everyone's going to like it, but the key is continue being yourself. Now, thankfully, these things can't happen in real life, but great book, Sleeping Beauty and Cinderella. Very both filled with jealousy. So, just like I say every Tuesday, a hard head, soft bottom. That's right, Pancho. That's what they say, and that's what happened to her. So I want to say, like I say, every single Tuesday, if nobody else tells you, Dr. George loves you. And I'm going to wait because I'm trying to find out next Tuesday. I may be appearing from a guest school, and one of the surrounding districts. If you'd like me to read live from your Facebook page, please let me know. Whether it's a business or an educational institute, I would love to read to your scholars, and our AR books are coming back soon. So depending on what I find out tomorrow, we may be continuing. If not, we'll take a break and read another book. And loving yourself is so important starting at an early age. That's so true, and probably one of the hardest things to do if you don't start it early. So, guys, join me next Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Central. Please share it. Miss Parker, I love you too. It's a pleasure seeing all of you. Thank you for joining me tonight. And as I said before, if no one else tells you, Dr. George loves you. Rest well on purpose and have a good night and a good morning. Love you guys. Bye-bye.